But the thing is, we have the best employees out of anybody in the industry.
No question.
Can't even compare it to other people.
Oh, hello there. Welcome to the Stochastic.com NFL matchup strategy show. Get your provisions, my friends. It could be a while. No, we're going to look. We do a decently long show here, but we're giving you deep analysis for every single game on the main slate. And by God, is this one hell of a main slate or what? It's fun. I made I hand built on the show with Neil yesterday just to see what happened. An Atlanta Falcons stack with Ritter, Drake London, and Pitts because they're dirt cheap, and Washington is allowing 47 plays of 50 plus yards in the air every single game. And I did whatever the hell I wanted with these teams. So it might get weird. And we've got some fun spots. And we have only one elite running back priced at that rate on this slate. And we have Justin Jefferson on the IR. And we've got, and I don't say that to piss off Eric. I say that because like there are some weird dynamics at play. Maybe so far of the 6 weeks we've talked about, this might be for me the most fun that I'm going to have talking, or I have had throughout the week talking about a slate. So sit back, buckle yourselves in, get comfortable. We're breaking it all down here on the Matchup Strategy Show. I'm Dave Loughran at Lafy_D on the Twitters, LOUGHY_D. Joined by Eric Lindquist at Eric Lindquist. Happy to be with you, brother. This is going to be a fun one. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, my Minnesota Vikings are in shambles. I hope they lose the table as opposed to run the table. I don't know the expression for that, but it is a wild one. 11 games. This is kind of my sweet spot. 10 feels a little bit shy. 14's always a lot, but like you get that 11 to 13 little window where you get some interesting pivots. You have San Francisco. You have that expensive running back you talked about. Going to be facing what I think is going to be probably a pretty popular defense come Sunday in the Cleveland Browns, even against this juggernaut that's San Francisco. So many different places to go. As you said, yeah, Washington, we could legitimately look at Atlanta as being viable, throwing the football with Arthur Smith at the helm. It's going to be a wild one, but Justin Fields has a pulse again. So many places that we can go on this slate.
A lot. Do you know where Run the Table originated?
I knew. Those like little moments you have in life where you kind of know what's coming next, and it's like you've almost like seen it play out. I knew you were going to know this expression, and then I had this like inkling you were going to say and be able to tell me exactly where it was from before it happened. That was wild.
It's that is like, so you premonitioned it.
Yeah. Because the chapping at the bit thing came to my mind immediately. Yeah. You just love bringing that up. And I was like, I bet Laffy knows where this came from. And sure enough, here you go.
Andy Francis and I were talking about this when I came on the Francis and Friends show. Yeah. I know you joined it. That's a really fun show on the Odd Shopper channel. You guys would really enjoy it. But he was saying how like he always looks into the origins of these weird phrases. And I said, fella, you've met your match. Because I do too. And I love that. Yeah. It's when I say this, you're gonna be like, it makes so much sense. Comes from pool, the game, pool, running the table.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But what's the opposite of running the table?
I don't know. I don't think there is one.
There's not really one. The donk at the bar you're buying? I don't know.
Yeah. Did you know pool and billiards are two different games?
I did. I definitely did. Yeah, because you see it in like not Inglourious Bastards. What's the one with Leonardo DiCaprio where he's on the table and then he has it's that crazy movie with Jamie Foxx, Jordan Klein. Yeah, Django Unchained. There you go. He's playing like a billiard style thing. Yeah. They're like two different things.
Yeah. I don't believe
then there's snooker, which is different too.
Snooker, yeah. I don't think a billiards table actually has pockets.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Anyway, this is why people are here, right? To listen to us talk about this. Happy to have you guys with us. As always, this is a fun show every week. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Atone for your sins here on a Thursday morning. The sinners are in the house.
Sinners and saints. That's Billy Joel, only the good die young. Again, we're here for the cultural foundation of your day. Like that's what it is. We're trying to bring you a little extra to your football analysis.
Someone said the Simmers and Saints. A little play on running.
Holy shit. That's it.
Not bad, right?
That's it.
Jordan hates this.
Why is it? Dude, bro, cringe.
Shout out to Jordan, though, for that Josh Engelman out of context clip yesterday. I tweeted, good. Dude, that I was laughing so hard watching that.
The best part is Josh in the moment had no idea that he was doing it. And Jordan Klein's just like, it's like Lee Trevino when he's watching Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
A little bit of that.
I just said so hard watching that, which is perfect.
So soft, actually.
Yeah. Check out that 13-second clip or whatever on Twitter. It is so good. It was good. It was good work by Jordan. Just, we need more things, Jordan. I'm going to task you with this as our producer. We're just going to start posting, and we're not going to say anything outside of just like hashtag out of context DFS, stuff like that. We could find some great stuff. All right. Subscribe to the channel. Help us to get to 100K here. And all of our stuff, guys, is in podcast form. You already know that. We have the podcast exclusive 3-max and single entry strategy show every Tuesday. It's awesome. We even went overtime on this one because we just had so much good stuff to talk about. That's only found in podcast platform. All of our other stuff on podcast as well. Afternoon slate breakdown every Friday, and bookmark it for Sunday afternoon if you want to go back and listen, because you're not finding that content elsewhere. And it's time to get into some NFL football for week 6. First up. All right, man. We've got the San Francisco 49ers and the Cleveland Browns. You and I said before the show, if there's some spots we're not targeting, we're just not even going to talk about them. Mm-hmm. With Cleveland, I am currently under the impression that Deshaun Watson doesn't play. The spread was at 3 points. Ben loved Cleveland in the event that Watson played. A lot of sharp bettors did. I did as well. But this has since moved to 7, probably potentially moves through 7 if PJ Walker is out there. The Cleveland Browns right now, even if Watson's playing, I don't love them against San Francisco. I think they make a game of it if Watson plays. But from a DFS perspective, I'm not big on this team.
Yeah, definitely not big on the Cleveland Browns. DTR, if he's at the helm, he had an amazing
They're saying
preseason.
PJ Walker might be the guy.
Really?
That's what I was seeing. Yeah.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Team's number 2. Okay, interesting. Because for me, that was never even in the realm. This is the stuff that happens to you when you're in the baseball streets all week. And last night I was putting my sheet together and didn't even think twice that it would be somebody other than DTR at the helm there. But I guess it makes sense that you would go to PJ Walker because he couldn't have looked worse in that start against Baltimore. Baltimore, not exactly the most difficult defense to be facing in its current iteration, not your grandfather's Baltimore Ravens. And, well, he threw 3 picks, had a 25.3 quarterback rating, and overall was just a huge, utter disappointment. If it ends up being PJ Walker, we know him from the XFL days, XFL legend PJ Walker. So I'm sure Neil Orfield is going to have an absolute blast rostering him at a flat 4K this week if he ends up being the guy, but ends up kind of showing up in Carolina. Didn't do a whole hell of a lot there. I mean, this is just a Cleveland team that it'd be hard to make anything. I think you can actually make tight end conversations in just about every situation, regardless of it being a Gardner Minshew or a PJ Walker. And David Njoku didn't practice Wednesday, so you could be looking at a flat $2,500 Harrison Bryant. That might at least be interesting. But other than that, Cleveland defense is my favorite play on the entire side of it, just purely from a price perspective. 2,200 going into the dog pound there, San Francisco firing on all cylinders. But hey, $2,200 helps you get a lot in your lineups.
Yeah, but overall, very ugly team this week. And it looks like Watson isn't going to play. AJ, that is, I think we need to start using that, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to explain this to Eric, just so he's in the loop with us here. Where is that comment? AJ Lamp said the Browns are going to squid chop the 49ers. So while I talk for this next setup, it's like 30 seconds. Go look. I was explaining this to Ben and he couldn't comprehend it, which made no sense to me. Such a smart guy in so many ways. And then sometimes he falls flat. Look up how to kill us. Just Google how to karate chop or how to kill a squid. You karate chop them below the head and they immediately die. AJ, I think we need to start using that as a phrase here for when we think a team is just going to humanely dispatch their opponent. I like that, man. I'm with you. I love it, as a matter of fact.
What the hell did I just watch?
Did you see all the color just go out? Gone. You karate chop. Ha! Yeah, gone. Just lifeless. Isn't that crazy?
It's like it goes from being salmon to like the white fish that you get in sushi. It's like a different complexion.
Almost saddens me, but it's humane. They're in, the lights are on and the lights are off. You know? Anyway, San Francisco, the question I have for you, because this is, I don't want to spend too much time on the Niners, but because there's some teams that I'm going to real deep dive into. The defensive line for the Cleveland Browns is stellar. I mean,
yes,
fantastic. If you want to say they're the best in the league, up there with the Eagles and the Niners, you can very much make that argument. They're outstanding. Myles Garrett having a phenomenal season. Christian McCaffrey is really, really expensive. For me, it's all just simply going to come down to ownership on McCaffrey. You know, if everyone else feels the same way I do right now with my heart, you know, and with everything going, I don't know if I want to pay that much, and he's super low owned, then I would definitely get some. But if he's really going to be, you know, 12, 11% do we have him at right now in this spot, at that price tag, he needs to give you an easy 30 plus, maybe 40. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. But this is completely an ownership dependent play for me at that salary.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. I had nearly 100%. I had 87% Christian McCaffrey in GPPs, and it was an absolute jam spot. But the big outlier, or the big question mark for me every single one of these weeks, is what happens with Eli Mitchell. We haven't seen him now since week 3. Week 4 he was out. Week 2 he was out. If he continues to be out here, it's still a spot where, yeah, Jordan Mason got mixed in a little bit more, but that game script was wild. They were up on Dallas early. Often George Kittle absolutely slammed. They didn't need to put Christian McCaffrey out there to go get body bagged. And, well, he's going to play damn near 90, 95% of snaps again in the event that you have no Eli Mitchell there. If he gets back into the mix, 9,500, I think Eli Mitchell is somebody that Shanahan trusts a little bit more to be out there. I think it's truly going to come down to that. For me, McCaffrey probably out of play with Eli Mitchell back, but considering he didn't practice Wednesday, I'm going to project McCaffrey for 90% of snaps here again against Cleveland, and I'm probably going to still take those shots if people are going to be shying away simply because of sticker shock.
What about the pass catchers where you have Kittle coming off a huge game, right? Dallas Cowboys embarrassed on Sunday Night Football, but then you've got Deebo Samuel, you have Brandon Ayuk, and I just keep coming back to the notion of it's still not a high passing volume attack. They still want to run the football. It's still a good Cleveland defense. And ultimately, while yes, a lot of this overall game total is going to the 49ers, it's still a 37.5 point total in Cleveland.
Yeah, it's unappealing from that perspective, but this is a 49ers team that I think is just proven to have upside with so many different pieces. Just difficult to know which piece is going to get fired in what spot. It's a little bit easier on a showdown slate where you kind of get the entire gamut and you can go to Kittle in an MVP and kind of know that there is an immense upside there. But when you talk about his range of outcomes and you talk about the bell curve and distribution for Kittle, there are so many outcomes where he's putting up 3-4 fantasy points. And then there's outcomes where he's putting up 25 plus. We've now seen it for a year and a half. We've seen it specifically under his time we hear with Brock Purdy, where there has been a decent amount of rapport, but they don't always need to utilize him there. He's good in the blocking schemes. He's one of those team first guys that it's just hard to know that if at 5K, whether you're getting that crazy ultra upside or whether you're not. And part of that is Ayuk healthy again, Samuel healthy again. If you get Eli Mitchell into the fray, there's just so many weapons on this team that hard for me to really pinpoint who it could possibly be. Brock Purdy still 5,600. I think you can rotate a couple of shares in there, but nothing on San Francisco going into Cleveland is going to be a priority for me.
Agreed. Carolina's a 13.5 point dog at Miami, 48.5 point total. All right. GC Samurai, strike first, strike hard, squid chop, no mercy. I'm telling you, boy, you're gonna. I'm tasking you, Eric, with helping me start, working this into DFS vernacular. And I expect at some point throughout this show for you to use that. You could even be like, dude, Miami just squid chops Carolina today. It's a wrap.
Oh my God, the Simmers and the Squidders.
Now we're off the rails. I will say it again. I say it a million times. Stay away from Miles Sanders. And
Yep.
eventually, if Miles Sanders has a big game, you can come back and tell me I'm dumb, fine. But I can assure you that me telling you to stay away from Miles Sanders in 15 of the 17 weeks that he doesn't have a big game will be beneficial to you long term. Laviska Shenault's the best damn running back on that team right now. That's how bad it is. Adam Thielen's like the only semi-viable guy out there. There's now there was some stuff out there saying Frank Reich wanted CJ Stroud, and the owner is the reason that they ended up with Bryce Young. Bryce Young has been overpowered, outmatched. He's made a couple decent plays, but he hasn't looked good. Like Adam Thielen is the one guy that's been consistent in this offense. Once you get past that, Hayden Hurst, week one, whatever, distant afterthought. Jonathan Mingo could have a good career for sure, but right now, how much are you really getting out of him? I look at this team as a 13.5-point dog, and I say, you know what? There could be some opportunities playing from behind on the road in Miami. Adam Thielen, sure. If you're in the largest field of tournaments and you want to go with Laviska Shenault and think that maybe Frank Reich does some crazy shit and starts giving him a lot of work out of the backfield, you could maybe make that argument. But the Panthers don't look good as a team this week.
No, they don't. But I will say, I'm a little bit surprised to see Adam Thielen's ownership where it is. I mean, this is like the perfect combination of roll and box score and everything that I find it hard to believe that he won't be double digits and get steamed up come Sunday. 28.9% of the air yards here, 25.8% target share on the season. He's put up 96 PPR points. And, Andy Dalton, that was a nice thing to have along for the ride. But now we're seeing that's just kind of who Bryce Young is targeted in on constantly. And why not? He's got a decent red zone role as well. Adam Thielen, he did in Minnesota. That was basically what he did for us, us being my team, the Minnesota Vikings, the team that is in shambles right now. But Adam Thielen is certainly going to be a piece at sub 6K. If you're looking to run Miami back, it just feels so easy to click on Adam Thielen that I'm shocked to see his ownership where it's at right now.
Is he the one play, though, for Carolina? Because I think that's kind of how it looks to me.
Yeah, he's the one play. I'm going to at least throw out Hayden Hurst again, 3,100. It doesn't feel good. And now you're getting Tommy Tremble at the goal line. That's been an actual thing that's happened, just week 5. But that was a little bit tilting because I had one really good team that somehow had Hayden Hurst as the run back for the Detroit David Montgomery madness and Jared Goff going nuts. But Hayden Hurst, 3,100. We could say that about most teams, though, where if you're looking for one viable piece, it's just punting on a tight end.
I don't hate it. Look, do I like it? No, but tight end stinks.
Yep.
It's that. I mean, that's it.
It looks better this week simply because you have two spots in Laporta who, I mean, you could not have been more right about that individual. He is hashtag good at football. Dallas Goedert coming to life, but specifically TJ Hawkinson as well for tournaments. There are no rules without Justin Jefferson on the field. Kirk Cousins keying in on a tight end wouldn't shock anybody here. Chicago secondary, the best spot you can possibly run into in a get right spot of sort for the Vikings, even though it's not going to be something that I want to see. I would much rather have Caleb Williams than anything else out of this season. But TJ Hawkinson, 6,600, in interesting tight end position this week, if you will.
It is interesting. And I think it breaks down nicely by tiers where there's like one really good guy in each one of those. On the Miami side, somebody said, I don't know how you don't play Mostert this week. Honestly, I think I agree with you here.
Same.
Now, Jeff Wilson could be back. They opened the 21-day practice window. I know Ben had mentioned, I think it was on Tuesday. It might have been Neil yesterday. That how much do they actually use him? I don't know. Like Salvin Ahmed could just get the opportunities. Who knows? But Raheem Mostert, despite the fact that the fumbling issues each of the past couple of weeks haven't been great. A-Chain fumbled last week too.
He did.
But he's still averaging 5.4 yards per attempt. This offensive line, even without Armstead, they're just opening up so many holes. Yards before contact is massive for Miami, and not just against Denver. To me, Raheem Mostert, Tyreek Hill, just two phenomenal plays this week. If you want to get there, you get there. And I don't think anyone could argue against it outside of just trying to be wildly different with a team that's a 13.5-point favorite. And maybe being different results in you going to, I would argue, a still overpriced Jalen Waddle but that is going to depress his ownership considerably, because if you're paying for Jalen Waddle, you're only doing so to be different.
True. And I did that last week. I had a lot of doubles where it was Hill Waddle. And of course, you get the Achane, take it to the house. We're not going to even rehash that because, there are different lines of thinking about that play. And, I'm in one camp. I think a lot of other people, again, the Sims tool is in love with getting to Achane last week. I got to say, the Sims tool had a phenomenal week if you just plugged and played. And, sometimes you just trust the data and you roll with it because hashtag knowing ball, or trying to get away from a guy who has like the top sprint speeds in the NFL, like 3 of the top 5. Now, Mostert also another compliment to it, and Tyreek Hill on the other side, another part of it too. Miami just has so many dudes, and I think this week, because of the absence of Achane, makes you feel a little bit better about Mostert. We'll see his ownership come up. I'm pretty positive of that. Salvin Ahmed, I think he'll get mixed in for some third down work. I think Chris Brooks, who we saw active in week 3, he'll get a couple of touches. And Alec Ingold, he's a fullback that they did pay, and, minimal because a fullback doesn't cost all that much. But Alec Ingold, somebody to actually pay attention to, should be able to be playing this week. So pay close attention to that. That's just another guy that can come out and at least take a couple of opportunities, probably not snaps away from a guy like Mostert. But in terms of priority for me, Mostert, Hill, and then, yes, Waddle is a very contrarian piece, but this offense has so much upside, and it's not too hard to play Tua alongside Hill Waddle. I think that there's at least a number of cheaper wide receivers that I have interest in. You can punt the tight end position. You get some cheap defenses. Like I have more interest in Waddle this week than I had last week, even though I kind of forced myself to play a little bit more.
Yeah, I get it. And also, one more thing before we move off of this game, to Justin's point in chat, he said he likes Mingo this week at 3,500 playing from behind. You might be right. Maybe that's kind of a blind spot because he hasn't been good and he hasn't had like super valuable targets. He hasn't really produced much with them, but he's the clear wide receiver. We can say 3, maybe 2 and 3 between him and Shark. It's like Thielen and then everybody, and then the other guys. But, 86% of snaps last game in his return after being out, I think, with a concussion. Ran routes on 82% of dropbacks, targeted 7 times, playing from behind. Yeah, you know what, Justin? I'll go back. I'll say I was wrong on that. And you forget about results on Sunday. I think you're right. I think at $3,500, if they just have to throw all game because they have no run game at all, and maybe Miami looks to limit Adam Thielen, Mingo at almost minimum salary actually does make some sense. I think I'm with you there.
Yeah, it's difficult when you have guys out like that because you have the percentage of the team's air yards and you can talk about whether they're active for those or whether they're not active for them. But the numbers are what they are. He leads the team in air yards, 28.2% air yards here on the season, 18.4% target percentage. That's when he's active. It's not the cumulative number because otherwise that would be Thielen. But Jonathan Mingo, 3,500, if you want to take some shots, we could probably say that about a number of these guys. I would have more interest in DJ Chark just because that upside, we know he's going to have the larger ADOT. He's had at least 14 yards per catch in every single game so far that he's appeared in the 4 games that he's been in. So DJ Chark, I think there's an actual pronounced upside for deep targets. That probably gives me a little bit more upside than Mingo, just kind of getting peppered in the short to intermediate range. But I see the case for it. It's more of a price play there.
Want to move on to the next game?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's talk about, well, God, there's some good ones. Minnesota and Chicago. This is a good one to discuss. I'm actually surprised that the total's as low as it is at 44.5. I know the weather's not supposed to be great, but I don't see this as anything that's, apocalyptic by any stretch. It's like 53 degrees, whatever. It's October, chance of some rain. It's going to be windy there, but nothing crazy. It's not like that Patriots Bills game a couple of years ago where you just could not throw the football and Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris won the game because Mac Jones threw twice and Josh Allen continuously tried to throw. It's not like that. But look, we'd be crazy if we didn't dig deep into this Minnesota team with Justin Jefferson on the IR because there's Jordan Addison, there's KJ Osborne, and KJ Osborne's been ingrained in this offense for a while now. He's not a special receiver by any stretch, but he's there and he's involved, and he was targeted 9 times last game, and then Jefferson went down. There's TJ Hawkinson. It should be the number 1 guy here, you would think. Rookie Jordan Addison. And then Madison on the ground. Yes, Cam Akers is going to get worked in. I mentioned it before last week. Expect Madison to get some opportunities taken away from Cam Akers, but I I don't want to inflate the significance of Chicago's win against the Commanders. It was an impressive win. Commanders are the worst team in the league at limiting the deep ball, and we saw that. Good job, Justin Fields, DJ Moore. That was all really impressive stuff, and I want to target them against the weak Minnesota defense. But I'm still looking at Chicago as a bad defensive team, Eric, and that's what I'm getting at here. Like, they're still a bad defensive team, and there's going to be points scored by this Minnesota offense.
Yep, there are. It's this is a game that I feel like it's very hard to get away from in any capacity. We just saw the DJ Moore, Justin Fields experience, and now they've had a couple of extra days for preparation. They haven't played for a week from today. 10 days it'll be by the time Sunday rolls around. So some extra preparation, extra rest time, some extra time to maybe get Darnell Mooney to catch a football, or maybe just throw a ball to him that is catchable, Justin Fields. But there's an obvious rapport DJ Moore has with any bad quarterback, it would seem. He is just an undeniable number one. And at 6,500, I do expect his ownership to come up. And then on the Minnesota side, we're looking at Jordan Addison, going to probably be one of the more popular pieces of this entire slate. He's got the rookie grade. He's got the top 15 pick or top 20 pick that we had on Jordan Addison there. I feel pretty confident that he's going to be the guy as opposed to KJ Osborne, who's been around for a while and has been on the field an absolute ton. I think the better question for me is if we're going to get away from them, what that looks like. And I think there's an opportunity for both Oliver and Munt. Josh Oliver, somebody that we brought in, I believe from Jacksonville in the offseason. I know that he was there and then he was in Baltimore for a hot second, but he's at least a piece that I think that they can throw out there. Johnny Munt, familiar from the Rams days with O'Connell. So Johnny Munt, somebody that could just be out there blocking. A lot of 12 personnel that I think comes into play for the Minnesota Vikings in the event that they don't want Powell to be out on the field as much as what he was towards the end of that one. So I know there's been some rumblings of Brandon Powell and what KJ Osborne's role looks like. But for me, I think Minnesota, it's going to be more of a question of how steamed a Jordan Addison and KJ Osborne get, because I would have a lot of interest in getting away from them, whereas I have almost no interest in getting away from TJ Hawkinson at his current ownership.
I'm with you. Is that Sarah THS or Saraths? If I get $1 each time I listen to Laffy talking about the Bills weather game, you're so right. I talk about
you do bring that up.
I talk about it way too much.
Here's the thing, though. I remember trying to, because I was in Arizona and I was like, oh, I'm going to get so much money on the under of this, or like there were so many guys that I was looking at short, but like watching field goals on Twitter and trying to figure out what they meant. Like when the ball was coming backwards in warmups. Yeah. That was one of the crazier experiences I've ever had trying to like analyze what the hell I was going to do.
Yeah. Tyler Bass.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the reason I bring it up so much is because like people always ask questions about weather. And I just kind of use that as a baseline of like, this is a bad weather game, Do
they have 2 passes? Is that how many New England threw?
Mac Jones, it was 2 or 3 passes. He completed one of them. Yeah. But I always just use that as a baseline because people always ask, and it's like, look, I'll let the total, the Vegas total dictate where I go with something like this because the weather is baked into the total. Yep. So if it's nothing insane, I'm not going to worry about it. And I always use that because that game, you actually could not throw the football. That's why I bring it up so often. There are few games where you see weather like that. Sometimes it's like once a year, but oftentimes it's once every 3 years. And, I remember last year we had that Arctic blast. Remember it was like Tennessee, 18 degrees at kickoff or something. And there were probably 10 games that were in that weather that week. And all of them ended up having totally normal scores.
Yep. So nothing happened.
Anyway, on the Chicago side, I'm not going to say anything definitive on the backfield yet outside of Khalil Herbert's not going to play. And I don't think Roschon Johnson plays. We haven't seen these guys return.
What about Cole Kmet? It's a hamstring.
I think this guy's always questionable midweek. And I think he got a limited practice in and he wasn't, didn't he have a limited, if he had a limited practice on Wednesday, I'm penciling him as in.
Okay. I would legitimately play Robert Tonyan perhaps in cash in the event that Cole Kmet was out. Like that's how bad Minnesota is, and 2,500 Robert Tonyan. He's been running quite a few routes at least. So wanted to at least throw it out there.
Sure. I mean, I could be wrong. I just think if you're getting a limited work in Wednesday, you're probably, I don't know. We'll see.
Good
But
point.
Donta Foreman, the problem I have with him, and shout out to you guys. Thanks for getting us north of 50 likes here. The issue I have with him is just kind of like he's been inactive coach's decision for a few games, or I think a couple games. It's two, at least two, maybe three. Does he come back and just get the lion's share of work? I almost lean towards yes here, which is scary. I kind of lean towards yes, because if he doesn't, it's what? Kerry Blossingame.
Yep.
Travis Homer, who's just been a special teamer, and he's not even practicing with a hamstring himself. I think it would be Foreman.
I do too. I mean, he had 8 opportunities there, and those weren't when the game was out of hand. If you go through the Blazen game, if you go through the game script, Kari Blasingame got 8 carries. It was all at the end of that game, with it very much decided. So it's such a weird spot, because you do think that like maybe you can get a consolidated workload for Donta Foreman, who had serviceable games in Carolina, had serviceable roles in Carolina.
Had a couple huge games in Carolina.
It's just, for me at 4,400, you'd kind of have to contemplate it. Gives you access to get to that Tua stack pretty easily. Getting to a Minnesota stack, which is more expensive because of Kirk Cousins. Obviously, you lose Justin Jefferson, so there's that big omission. But Kirk Cousins not exactly cheap there for this game at 7,100 if you're trying to make that a thing with some of the cheap pass catchers that will definitely have interest. But yeah, I think Donta Foreman, that's just going to be, for me, coming down to what we at Stokastic have for projections. Because like, I don't know necessarily if I have a take for it. I feel like Chicago running game, and it's just been something I've avoided all season long. It hasn't completely gutted me. Khalil Herbert had the awesome outing in week 4 against Denver. That would have been serviceable. But outside of that, it's kind of been a flat zero where it's just so diluted. A number of guys getting mixed in. Travis Homer would be your third down back in the event that he is active. But as you said, not practicing, pretty unlikely that you see him out there. So I mean, Blasingame Foreman, just one of those things that on Sunday morning, have it on your radar to pay attention to how many running backs they have active. They do have Robert Burns on the practice squad, it looks like, as well. So for me, it'll just kind of be reading the tea leaves on Sunday.
Yeah, I get it. We have DJ Moore projected at sub 3% ownership. I said to Neil yesterday, I would be really surprised if DJ Moore doesn't come in, and this will adjust throughout the week, obviously. It was just our first run, so we could do the show yesterday. I would be shocked if DJ Moore doesn't get significantly more ownership.
He will be almost double-digit owned for sure. Against the Vikings secondary, there's just there's no reason that you wouldn't look at him coming off of that Washington spot. And yeah, Washington, when we get there with Atlanta, I'll let you hash out all the ways that they give up big plays, but it is very, very obvious that there are some issues there in that secondary. But between Byron Murphy Jr., who really hasn't panned out for us, on the defensive side, trying to be somebody that can mix in as a corner. I mean, against Moore, probably going to have Caleb Evans, who, again, second-year player out of Missouri that's decent enough. But, I mean, I'm not really all that enamored with anything that we're doing defensively. We don't really have a pass rush outside of Danielle Hunter from time to time finding his way to the quarterback. But, like, it's a broken, lost season for us, and DJ Moore torching us would just be the cherry on top.
Yeah. Huge game, 200 plus yards, 3 touchdowns. I think he's easily over 10%.
I'm with you.
Yeah. And I like him, by the way. I think DJ Moore's a nice play.
I mean, there's a lot of other spots. I mean, Jamar Chase, because of what he did, Cooper Kupp, because of his role right out of the gate, because you've got a lot of mid-tier plays too. There's going to be some really high ownership at the wide receiver position on a couple of pieces, but still I find it impossible that people don't look at the tag for DJ Moore and what he just did in prime time.
Exactly.
We kind of see the prime time bump in these kind of spots. Yeah.
I honestly think that Darnell Mooney's fine too. He was targeted 3 times, 20 plus yards downfield last week. He just didn't convert any of them. If you're looking for a dirt cheap play, I think Darnell Mooney in this spot is viable. If you're in large field tournaments trying to be different, and some of these other 3K guys get steamed up and end up underwhelming as they generally always do. People got lucky, myself included, with some lineups on Rashee Rice last week. He only ran 10 routes, and he scored.
It's wild.
But DJ Moore, and yes, Darnell Mooney, I think, is viable. If Cole Kmet plays, he's viable. The backfield, that's another question. Cornelius said, I still wish we kept Foreman instead of getting Sanders. You actually should have, because Foreman's the type of guy that doesn't need 3-4 yards before contact to make a quality run. Sanders does. Sanders is a guy that's patient behind the line and needs something to open up. Mm-hmm. Foreman will just kind of steamroll his way through. That's what you need in Carolina, unfortunately. But anyway,
they have that shifty back also in Hubbard, who is the same guy.
Same thing.
It's the same thing. You want to have backs that complement each other. You don't want to have same. That's always silly to me.
Yeah, it doesn't work. But no, I like Chicago this week. I like Justin Fields. Ben loves Justin Fields again, but he's always on him, and understandably so. I like everything from this game. 44.5 point total, but I do still think there's some real shootout potential here. Or it's just a disgusting mess, a slop game.
Don't say that. We need to try to have something pop from this game, because it's just so hard to imagine that Justin Jefferson, with the role that he had over the course of this season and every season in the NFL, 41.4% of the air yards for the Vikings this year, nearly a 30% target share. That is so much production that has to go somewhere else. And the Bears, well, they ain't good at the old defense.
Wrap it up with your favorite way to target this game, to play this game, before we talk Indy and Jacksonville.
I mean, KJ Osborne and Jordan Addison are pretty clear cut. I do prefer Addison. I think that he carries more upside. KJ Osborne should be on the field a lot, though, pretty much 100% of the time, 4,400 for him. If Powell starts to get ownership, I will say, I think there's a $2,500 shot that you could take on something out of the Minnesota tight end spot, but there's probably a lot of other $2,500 tight ends that I'll have interest on for this slate in large field, trying to win a milli type deals. The Minnesota backfield is a disaster. We're now seeing Cam Akers start to cut into that Alexander Mattison role. Madison's had the more opportunities. He's just dropping footballs when he could have been taking it to the house. Did have that receiving touchdown, but still just not separating himself. Cam Akers getting worked in more and more, going to be staying away from that. I think my priority for this football game goes Addison, DJ Moore, KJ Osborne, TJ Hawkinson fourth, which is kind of wild because TJ Hawkinson's my favorite tournament play from him.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I also like the Colts to cover this game against Jacksonville.
You do?
Yeah, dude. Have you seen the stats on teams returning from London who have to play without a bye the next week?
But they were able to stay over there. It wasn't like a herky-jerky back and forth. They were able to kind of stay put for 2 weeks and then fly over, which I think might be a difference.
Which I think is worse.
You think so?
Well, you're there for a week, or there. I see what you're saying, but you're there for 2 weeks and then you come back immediately after play. Yeah, it's like 11 teams have done that, and all of them have either been trailing in the fourth quarter or it's been like a one-score game with this many minutes left in the fourth. Just really, really competitive games. Plus, it's a divisional spot. I know Jacksonville beat up on Indy in week 1. Jacksonville's also just been a Jekyll and Hyde type football team this year for sure.
I bet them against the Bills. It was beautiful.
Yeah, that was a good spot for sure.
Okay.
I'm assuming your logic was they had been in London for a week already, and the Bills were already dealing with injuries and stuff.
Dealing with injuries, Tre'Davious White was out, and it just felt like a spot where Buffalo was going to try to have to make something work against Ridley and Kirk on a whim, and it didn't work.
Yep, I'm with you. But Anthony Richardson's out. He's on the IR 4 to 8 weeks. It sucks. Gardner Minshew has filled in very admirably.
It's very good.
And, Josh Downs, I think, is viable. Someone hit us with the splits, actually, yesterday when Neil and I were talking. The down splits are significant, much better with Gardner Minshew on the field. Targeted much more frequently, which makes sense. Pittman's price tag makes him a little bit more difficult. I think my favorite pass catching option is probably Downs at the price point. You want to work in some Kylan Granson in a more pass-centric offense now. I get that. Well, pass-centric quarterback. I get that. And then the backfield, I'd probably just stay away from with another week of Jonathan Taylor in the lineup.
See, that's where I'm having a tough time because there is some interest. This is probably my craziest take I have on the board. I think I have to have some interest in Jonathan Taylor this week. He barely played. We saw him get seven total opportunities there against Jacksonville. And Zach Moss set the earth on fire. 23 carries, just took two of those to the house, had the 56-yard run that was absolutely electric. 36 and a half DraftKings points.
Against
Hello.
a very good Titans run defense.
And now you're getting Jacksonville. Now you have to basically look at this team that just paid Jonathan Taylor $28.5 million up front, $42 million total for 3 years. But yeah, $28.5 million guaranteed. Doesn't it flip right away here after 1 week? Just, hey, let's see how Jonathan Taylor's looking, because this offensive line is the main thing that I want to be backing in some capacity. I think they're a lot better than we anticipated coming into this season. And I think they're going to create opportunities for Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor. And I kind of want to just play whomever gets most of the work here going up against Jacksonville. 22nd ranked defense here in PFF grading. You look at a couple of their pieces, whether it's, Lloyd, that's going to probably be out for this one. He's questionable with an arm injury, but a number of pieces on the defensive end that haven't looked that good for the Jaguars. I think this is a chance to possibly get a really, really, really low owned piece of this backfield in Jonathan Taylor in the event that the switch flips. Now, the question is Zach Moss probably getting more of the third down work, because Jonathan Taylor, that's never really been his forte. And Zach Moss, going back to his Buffalo days, wasn't really targeted in that capacity, but has had 4, 3, 2. He's had some actual decent allotments in the passing game here for the Colts. And now you get a pass-centric quarterback in there. I kind of want to have some of those low-grade like the PPR upside there if it's going to be Jonathan Taylor out there, but I'm not positive that just happens right away. I think it's just taking a shot on this offensive line going up against a Jacksonville team that did just travel. Maybe I'm absolutely insane, but 1% for Jonathan Taylor just seems a little bit crazy.
The good fella in chat said JT is such a great price. If he does get the usage, that could open up a lot. GC Samurai said, the Colts are going to want some return on that investment.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I don't know if he is a good price. I think he's probably reasonable. Kenneth Walker's going up against what has been the second worst run defense in the league. He's not getting a lot of ownership. He's the same price. Alvin Kamara is going up against Houston. He's coming off a 22 carry game. Kyron Williams has Arizona. Raheem Mostert has Carolina. Swift in a game where I think they do everything they can to dominate possession on the ground and just forego throwing the ball a lot of this and open things up is 6,100. For me, it's just a really tough price range to make the justification. You could be right.
So Zach Moss, we have projected for double what Jonathan Taylor has right now. I think this is the most volatile projection spot that exists in a backfield on this slate. It
double
could
ownership
be,
or double fantasy points.
I'm double fantasy points. We have Zach Moss projected 14. We have Jonathan Taylor around 7, and that's I gotta imagine that's an early week deal where we are just kind of copy pasting in what their workload is for the first time that they were next to each other. I think that's a fine way to do it for the early portion of this week, but you got to think about it logically in terms of like range of outcomes. Jonathan Taylor gets paid. Zach Moss looks amazing. You kind of look stupid. Not that, the owner of the Colts could look any stupider than he already is, but like legitimately Zach Moss, if he's going to be double that at 6,200, you'd have to have a ton of interest at 1% in him just based on projection. But I'm thinking more so of like, what that could flip onto. Like Jonathan Taylor's going to get the majority of this backfield at some point. You just want to be early to the party for it. And yeah, maybe this isn't the best spot. Maybe you do want to kind of like take it easy, but once he gets to 65% of the snaps, you've missed your window of opportunity in tournaments to get him at 0.1 or 1% ownership. So I'm at least throwing it out there that it's something that, like, if you're trying to win $1 million, you're looking for that one piece of differentiation from chalky stacks. Jonathan Taylor / Zach Moss could be it.
Here's the one spot we differ. Then we can move on.
Okay.
I don't think there's a big we just paid this guy, we don't want to look dumb in week 6, because looking dumb would be giving him all the carries and a guy that was just on the injured reserve for the first 4 weeks of the season. Zach Moss is coming off the best rushing performance I've seen against the Titans defense in a long time. And he's playing really well. He's on a nothing contract. He's on a nothing contract.
Run him into the ground.
Yeah. He's an unrestricted free agent next year. He's getting paid $1 million or whatever this season. To me, they're 3-2 in the division. The Jags are 3-2. They have a legitimate shot to make the postseason this year. I think it would be weird for them to just like hand the keys over to Jonathan Taylor this week. I know they're paying him, but they're paying him for the future as well, and not just for week 6 or for week 7 when they've got a guy in Moss who has performed really well.
Again, this is one of those tough spots because again, we're the most time that we spend on something is going back and forth between like 1% owned running backs, which is kind of funny, but like it's kind of the fun of fantasy football and specifically DFS, where getting this right one time out of 100 can pay for your entire entry fees for the rest of your life in DFS. You could set yourself up and win a milli. Something like this, where you end up guessing on the right side of it. Maybe that is Zach Moss. Through your logic, I think through that lens at 6,200, if you're going to get 65% of the work here for Zach Moss, just because Jonathan Taylor, you're slowly acclimating him, you don't want him to get hurt, you want to be careful, have him ready and fresh for the end of the season, sure, go right ahead and do that. And then, play Zach Moss this week. So there's just a fragile projection for both of these guys, and I just want it to be known.
Fair enough. Look, I'm always happy to debate that type of stuff, even if we're just providing devil's advocate thoughts on both sides.
You know who we're not going to argue about? Travis Etienne.
No, yeah, definitely not. It's a great price. It's a great price. And he's coming off a 26 carry game. Tank Bigsby becomes less involved every single week.
Yep.
The fact that we've now seen 5 targets in 3 of 5 games for Etienne is super encouraging. That was the big issue last year with him, that he was strictly a decimal back, as actually Chat helped us term last season. Yeah, I like Etienne quite a bit here as 4.5, 4-point favorites at home. What are you doing with the Jags?
Yeah, I'm playing Etienne. That's a definite thing. I never know what to do when you have Trevor Lawrence without Zay Jones here, because it seems like Zay Jones just matters to the complexion of this football team. Without him, they haven't had nearly as much success offensively. But Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk, I definitely have interest getting to them. Kirk, 5,400. After week 1, where Calvin Ridley set the world on fire in 1/2, it has been kind of the Christian Kirk show. It's been flipped on a dime. Christian Kirk been the better fantasy output guy between the two over the course of this season. Had a really nice game, though, from Calvin Ridley there last time out against Buffalo. That was part of the Tre'Davious White being out. And then Evan Ingram starting to get targeted at a high clip yet again. 4 straight games of 8+ target, or of exactly 8 targets, excuse me. So ETN, you're getting a bell cow back, 85% of the work plus. You're getting Trevor Lawrence at 6,500, so he's cheaper than those 7K guys that are kind of littered, whether it's Cousins and Fields that we just covered and guys of that nature, or you're just stacking them up together with 2 or 3 pieces going up against a Colts defense that I still don't find to be all that prohibitive for me. So I'm definitely going to be having some interest on all of these pieces from Jacksonville.
Brandon Smith, I'm looking for a breakout game for Ingram, averaging 8 targets a game past 3 weeks. Yeah, actually, I don't. No issues with Ingram, especially with how weak the tight end position is. Yeah, price is fine. Yeah, I think Ingram's a nice play. Who knows?
And I love these guys that are getting targeted and they haven't scored yet, because it doesn't nuke their box score to a place where now you throw a touchdown into like his week 4 performance, 7 for 8, 59 at a touchdown. That's going to be a lot different, and people are going to have a lot more interest than they would in the event that didn't show up.
For sure. We have Ingram at 11%, but still not crazy. Bad tight end position. Seattle and Cincinnati. Before we hit on Seattle and Cincinnati, guys, and like I said, this is a long show to tell you about Bet365, and I'm going to give you 6 states. It's a long show. If you're not in one of these 6 states, feel free to go take a leak. You know what I mean? Go do what you need to do for the next minute. But if you're in one of these 6 states, I promise, if you haven't taken advantage of this offer yet, it's something you'll at least want to listen to, because you'll put yourself in a position going into maybe tonight's game or Sunday where you're in a no lose, even if you lose your bets. If you're in Colorado or Virginia or New Jersey, or Iowa or Ohio. And more importantly, if you're in Kentucky, those 6, you're getting those 5, $150 when you sign up. Takes 2 minutes. Deposit on Bet365. The link is in the description. The link is in chat. Jordan just threw it in there. $150 when you bet $5. It's that simple. If you win your bet, you're getting $155 regardless of your winnings. If you lose, you're getting $150 regardless of losing. I would say not something I'd advocate normally. Nice parlay. Long odds parlay. Get it in there. Why not? Because you know what's coming to you on the other side. It's one of those spots where it's like, oh, I lost today betting, but I didn't lose because now I've got this coming my way. If you're in Kentucky, you deposit $10 and bet $1, 10% of those $10 that you deposited, and you now get $365 over at Bet365. It's an unbeatable promo right now. And there's 2 reasons it's unbeatable. The first one is the simplest. You actually want to just take free money when books are giving it to you. Okay. They're a huge international book. They've been around forever, way more than any of these others, but they're just making their way into the US. And you want to get a foothold. How do you do it? You say, we want to give you guys free money. And that's what they're doing. It takes you 2 minutes to sign up and deposit $10, only bet 5 or only bet 1 if you're in Kentucky. You're making $75 a minute, 150 in 2 minutes, way more if you're in Kentucky. But also, and this is understated. If you guys do bet, or even if you're just recreational and looking to get into it, always make sure you're on a bunch of different sports books. The last thing you want is to bet a touchdown score at plus 160 and figure out that you go on Twitter and you're like, shit, this guy got him at plus 320. I had $100 on this. I won 160. He won 320 on the exact same bet, just because he wasn't sitting on one individual book. So link in the description, link in chat. Colorado, Virginia, Ohio, New Jersey, Iowa, bet 5, get 150. Kentucky, bet $1, get 365. Best promo out there for sure. All right, Seattle, Cincinnati. I kind of like this game. I actually think there are some shootout vibes here. Now, the weather's going to be a little weird in this one. Fine. But I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. 55 degrees, chance of rain, a little bit of wind. Kenneth Walker's in a good matchup. He's not getting much ownership at all because of so many similarly priced running backs in good spots. We'll see if T. Higgins is back. I think he probably will be. Logged a limited practice yesterday. But Joe Burrow finally looked semi-competent last week against Arizona. On both sides of this, feel free to break it down on both sides because there's a lot of intriguing pieces from Cincinnati and from Seattle.
Yeah, I was kind of floored by Jamar Chase's ownership. It was really low without T. Higgins out on the field. And Trenton Irwin ended up playing a lot more than probably anybody expected, got targeted with 10 targets, but nothing really compares to Jamar Chase in a must-win spot for him. 19 targets, 15 catches. That was definitely in the category of things that I got right last week. Felt pretty confident about it. And I feel pretty confident again that Jamar Chase will have a very, very active role against the worst secondary in football, giving up the most fantasy points to wide receivers on the season are the Seattle Seahawks. So that's going to be a fun one. Joe Mixon, he's continuing to be extremely inefficient with opportunities, but he's getting all of the opportunities. I think at 6,300, because the price has been stagnant here, I think we still have to have some interest there. I'm going to be paying very close attention to his ownership, though, relative to these other running backs, because I will say his inefficiency jumps off the page. It's Irv Smith out there running routes at least, but not catching footballs. He's a flat 3K, formerly of my Minnesota Vikings. But Joe Burrow, 6,300 going up against this Seattle team. This is somebody that goes in that category of guys that I expect to continue to get steamed up as the week goes along, as we head into Sunday. Definitely priority for me, though. Jamar Chase. Seattle side. Now, this is where I kind of want to ask you, because Kenneth Walker is the person that I probably have the most interest on in the Seattle side. And that's a little bit surprising to say. I've never really been like a stan of trying to get to anything from Seattle in bulk, because you do have Charbonnet moving in a little bit. DJ Dallas can be your third down change of pace back. But like Kenneth Walker against Cincinnati seems a little bit tasty, no?
I love it. Yeah, I was talking about that earlier. I absolutely... Are there some, I don't even want to say red flags. By the way, if you're using the Bet365 promo, I guess I need to say must be 21 years or older to gamble, 18 plus in Kentucky. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Yeah, no, I definitely think so. There's a couple things to consider in a spot like this too. You've got A Seattle team that maybe, Charbonnet gets a little bit more involved, but look at the red zone attempts this season.
Yeah.
Kenneth Walker has 18. Charbonnet has 5. Dallas has 2. Inside the 10, 11 for Walker, 2 for Charbonnet. Inside the 5, 8 for Walker, 2 for Charbonnet. So Charbonnet has a couple, but Kenneth Walker still dominating red zone opportunities, dominating goal line opportunities. 64% through the 64 carries through 4 games. Not heavily involved in the passing game, but Cincinnati's run defense has not been good. I mean, they really have not been good. If we assume this game's going to stay close, and I do, then I'm definitely looking to target this. 3-point spread. Wouldn't be surprised if Seattle wins outright. Arizona played from behind all game and still rushed for 142 yards. Tennessee, 173. Rams, they locked them down on the ground. But Baltimore, 178 rushing yards. Cleveland, 206. They've had a couple of good running backs that they faced for sure, but Walker's pretty good himself. Yeah, at this price point, if he's, what do we have at, like 6% ownership right now?
Yeah, like nothing.
Then I'm perfectly fine.
It's at 4% right now for
4% Kenneth Walker. Yeah, I'll take some Kenneth Walker in this game for sure.
Yeah, against Cincinnati. I mean, it's a matchup thing too. 154 yards on the ground, second worst number in football for the Cincinnati Bengals defense. It's just a spot I think they'll be able to move the ball. And coming off a week 5 bye, early bye here for Seattle, come in locked and loaded. DK Metcalf didn't practice Wednesday. I think they're just taking it super easy on him. I fully expect him to be out on the field for Cincinnati there. That creates kind of an issue for me. I think Tyler Lockett at 5,700, he'll be kind of the play du jour because of price. I don't have a ton of interest there, but I have a ton of interest in Kenneth Walker.
Yes, I do as well. Seattle defense too on the other side, 300 plus passing yards in the first 3 games. I don't even count that New York game because Daniel Jones had no time to throw, so it doesn't matter. But I'm with you on Chase. If Higgins doesn't play, I'll go back to Boyd. I will.
I'll go to Trenton Irwin. Shit, 3,300. He ran it
for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm saying Irwin would be massively popular.
Yes, he would.
And I think Boyd would still be very interesting because of that.
100%. A lot of short intermediate routes for Boyd. I think that was kind of my main takeaway from that. I didn't know how it was going to slot in. Trent Irwin getting some of the slot, just wild to see 10 targets there. But yeah, still 7 for 6. Nothing to really bat your eye at for Tyler Boyd. 4,600 here, his tag this week. I'm with you. I think that would be kind of the sneaky spot coming off of a week where he was on the field the entire time.
Last question in this game. There is a real logjam among good running backs, or I should say volume heavy running backs in that 6K range. Swift, he really is right now. You're talking like 20 plus.
We
touches.
said it was coming.
Yeah. Last week wasn't spectacular, but look at
Don't care.
Look at the fact that he was targeted 6 times too. But you've got Swift, you have your boy Jonathan Taylor in there in between.
My boy.
Now he is, yeah. Hey,
no. I mean, nothing like claiming territory on a guy who's 0.1% and you're trying to make a case for.
All I'm saying is in the 6K range.
Yeah.
Kamara, huge workload. Right?
Kyren Williams, number 1 for me by a mile, actually.
Okay, but he's another one. Kyren Williams, Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara. Even if you want to throw Jacobs and ETN at 7,000 and 7,100, fine. Mixon at 63, Raheem Mostert at 64. You get my point.
Yep.
What are you doing with Mixon in this same range that's separated by $1,000? And there are legitimately 9 running backs that you could play within $1,000 price range and feel okay about it.
Yeah, right now, with Mixon being the highest owned of the entire slate, I would probably be looking for paths to get away from it. I will be paying very close attention to this ownership because everything in DFS for me is like relative to other players in the range. And then when you're plugging in the Sims tool, it's based off of our projections and doing simulations 10,000 times and giving you guys, all of the range of outcomes and helping you kind of like weed it down to what are the highest upside pieces that we can get exposure to. And for me, I find it hard to believe that Joe Mixon, based on what we've seen, isn't going to be somebody who, from a projection standpoint, stands out. But like, does he have 25, 30 in that range of outcomes right now? It's so hard because he's been so inefficient with all of these opportunities, has the entire backfield. And, third down work, if Chris Evans gets, activated and continued to work in, like that's going to limit some of those receiving game pieces. I'm probably looking mostly at Kyren Williams, Raheem Mostert I think that those are two pieces I do expect to come way up from where we have them at 12.7 and 12.2% ownership. I'm probably also looking at Swift 6,100 against the Jets. I think that that's the Jets as good as they can be in the secondary. They don't add a whole lot of ammunition or like, I'm not going to be staying away from Swift, I think, at that kind of a tag. And then probably Travis Etienne, 7,100, pretty in love with that workload. Josh Jacobs against New England. He's going to be very popular, rightfully so, coming off of back-to-back games where he has that entire backfield. Lots of pieces there, but yeah, Mixon, I would be inclined to get away from him when we're talking north of 20%, just inherently.
I don't disagree at all with you there. Yeah. If the ownership comes, this is one of those spots where I think you should be very cognizant of ownership. This price range
Yes.
is very ownership dependent in a lot of ways. Don't you think so?
Oh, but for sure. And that's where it's like right now I look at Kyron Williams and Raheem Mostert at 12.2 and 12.7. I would have like damn near 100% of them with the workloads that they have or the assumed workloads that they have. Raheem Mostert, he would just be so hard for me to imagine Jeff Wilson gets mixed in for what, 35-40% of snaps even right from the get-go. I know that he was kind of put on this 21-day window where he's probably been good for a week. They had him on ice. They were kind of waiting to activate him. Probably a little bit healthier than if they had activated him at the beginning of that window, but still, Raheem Mostert, God, 6,400 with no HAM. That's pretty impossible to get away from against Carolina.
Yeah, it definitely is. All right, Washington and Atlanta. Haha, here we go.
I'm ready for you. I want to hear this Atlanta passing game take because Kyle Pitts, he was alive for the first time. That was fun.
Yes, he was. Double-digit targets. Emmanuel Forbes has been targeted in coverage 27 times. He's allowed 20 receptions for 401 yards already and 2 touchdowns. Look at just go and look at everyone in the secondary right now. It is brutal. Kendall Fuller's been fine.
He's been really good.
Yeah, he's been good. But it doesn't really matter because they can just pick you apart everywhere else. I tweeted it on Wednesday. I mentioned to you guys, if you watched the ownership show yesterday, they've allowed 7 receptions of 50+ yards already. They've allowed 13 receptions of 30+ yards. They've allowed 16 of 25+ yards. Guys, they've played 5 games. Can they fix this? Definitely. Well, let's say it can't continue to be that bad every single game. Can Desmond Ridder be the cure for their ailments? Definitely. But Desmond Ridder is also coming off his best passing game as a pro. And the only reason I'm talking about this is one reason. If Washington doesn't fix it this week, and if Atlanta actually can move the ball through the air, it is the cheapest, most insanely cheap stack that you are going to find out there. And it's going to allow you to do anything else that you want. So yes, I will take some shots on some of these stacks, even if it's skinny stacks. But if you were to throw in Kyle Pitts and Drake London with Desmond Ridder, you are now talking about a stack with the quarterback and the 2 top pass catchers, of which, by the way, Desmond Ridder is not a great deep ball thrower, but he will throw downfield to Pitts in London. $5,000 Ridder, $4,800 London, $3,500 Kyle Pitts against a team that has allowed more deep completions by a mile than any other team in the league this year. I will take some shots on that and load up elsewhere because I don't need them to go nuclear. I just need them to be decent. If it doesn't work, I can live with that.
I agree with everything you just said, so I'm going to just ask you something else. Why the hell did they trade for Van Jefferson? Sorry, I caught you.
No, you're good.
What the hell are we doing?
I have no idea. It means nothing to me. Like, honestly, I don't want to go to Jonnu Smith here. I don't want to go to Mac Hollins. If you want to make that argument, fine.
But John Robinson's the guy that we didn't talk about, though, which I find to be a little bit ironic coming off of last week.
Oh, we're going to. I'm just talking about the stack right here.
Yeah, totally. I'm with you. I think Kyle Pitts, just seeing it, you had to see it to believe it. And hey, Arthur Smith looked his way. I mean, Kyle Pitts has always been a wide receiver. He's playing in line. That's his role. And it was great to see 11 targets. It was great to see him integrated in it because, like, we can all see the talent. We could all see it in college. We could still see it in the NFL when he got opportunity. It's just an opportunity-driven league. It's hard to put up fantasy points if you are not targeted as a pass catcher. So Kyle Pitts, he has that kind of upside. 3,500. He is going to end up being popular on this slate. He is going to end up being very popular. Right now, we have Zach Ertz at 3,600. I would be shocked, floored, if Zach Ertz was higher owned than Kyle Pitts coming off of what we just saw last week. And truly, all the points you brought up, secondary and linebacking crew. We're talking about one of the worst linebacking crews in football with Cody Barton on one side of it, 78th out of 81 grades on PFF, and Jamin Davis. These are guys that just don't really have great coverage grades either. Can't do anything in terms of run defense. It is brutality here on the Washington side. Allowed 30 plus points now in 4 consecutive games and saw evisceration last Thursday night. Desmond Ridder, as insane as it sounds, not the craziest thing the way that you laid that out.
Yeah, it's not. And you're not going to feel good about it. It's very possible that they could just, plummet back down to earth after one game. I think you and I are both well aware that that's a possibility. Yes.
But at 1%, do it. Desmond Ridder, 1%, has some rushing equity, 2 rushing touchdowns where he's not afraid to at least go on the outside and scramble and make something work.
Yeah. Look, and 2 of those teams that they coughed up 30 plus to were the Denver Broncos and the Chicago Bears. Maybe they fix it. Maybe they don't. Maybe the Falcons go back to being terrible through the air. Maybe they don't. I have no problem, like you said, 1%, taking a few shots, because even this is what it comes down to. Even if it's a decent stack, if you get the pieces right around them, you can play. I built lineups, just hand built, seeing what I could do. You can get whatever you want with that type of stack. So it's pretty fun. Pitts at 3,500 is just an individual play. I don't care how gross it is. 3,500 is just too cheap for his talent level in this spot. What are you doing with Bijan Robinson? And then feel free to make that transition to the Washington side as well.
Yeah, I think Bijan Robinson, it's going to always be a little bit game script dependent because Tyler Algier in some of these spots where they get way up, I can see him getting integrated like we saw last week. They were trying to play a little bit closer to the chest. 17 rushing attempts for Tyler Algier. Just when you thought Bijan Robinson had some separation at the position, it comes back to you. We'll see what happens to his ownership, but Bijan Robinson, 7,200, considering he's in a 50-50 timeshare, I would be more interested in just about every other bell cow running back in that situation. As much as we love the talent, the opportunity is kind of the question mark that you have there. And on the Washington side, I think Terry McLaurin, 5,500, there has been no doubt in my mind that he's been disappointing relative to anybody who drafted him, where they did in year-long or best ball. I think you still got to have a little bit of belief there. You're going to have Sam Howell just continue to get better. 51 pass attempts still, 37 completions. Looked pretty good against the Bears. A lot of teams are going to look good against the Bears, and a lot of players are going to look good against the Bears. But do like getting a little bit of Sam Howell into my life with Terry McLaurin. And then Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas, somebody who was a hot waiver wire ad for the week after 11 targets for him. So great to see him out there performing, considering all the injury history that he's had to deal with. Love getting to a little bit of them. So as much as you like the Desmond Ridder side, one play that I was pretty honed in on was the Howell plus McLaurin or Dotson, if you feel like it. And then Logan Thomas rounding it out at the tight end position.
Totally on board with that. I think it's better to be early on McLaurin than late.
Yes. And he's so talented. It's
he's
truly,
awesome.
I got to think that they were so behind against the Bears too. There was really no need to go out and push him. They ended up getting, Diami Brown involved a little bit. Curtis Samuel had a really nice outing there out of the slot. So Terry McLaurin, they kind of pumped the brakes on it, rightfully so.
Yep. Yeah. And when I say better early than late, he was still good against Philly. He had a decent game against Denver, but the Philly game wasn't on the main slate. And, it's just, or was it? Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. But
doesn't feel like it because there's nothing that happened in it other than AJ Brown eviscerating everybody.
Right. Yeah, I like McLaurin here. I definitely do. In this next game, I'm not sure how much I like. You have New Orleans and you have Houston. I think a veteran New Orleans defense can kind of wreak havoc on CJ Stroud in this game. I think he gets picked off for the first time, finally. I think he finally gets picked off. It's not to say he's going to be bad. And I also have no faith in Dennis Allen to ever make the appropriate decisions to win football games. But the usage from Alvin Kamara, look, the efficiency we've seen from him this year to start and last year isn't great. But he's clearly, without question, the guy. And they have a good enough defense to never generally not fall behind to a point where it's just bad. And when they do, well, then he gets targeted 13 times in the passing game for 33 yards. Kamara to me is still perfectly reasonable. Do I love him? No. Do I assume that I'm going to be around the field, maybe slightly over on a guy like Kamara because of the insane volume we're seeing? Yeah, totally fine with me at a mid 6K price point.
Yeah, Alvin Kamara, I mean, the Saints as a whole, 29th easiest strength of schedule played. So we're talking 3 teams that have had easier schedules than them. And now they get a Houston matchup where they're 31st in power rank over at PFF. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Kamara to continue to just lead this backfield, continue to have upside. It's pretty heavy on him. They ended up pumping the brakes on him as well. They had that game pretty well intact against New England. Complete evisceration, 34-0. Kendry Miller gets 12 carries, but go back to the Tampa Bay spot. He had all of 1 carry and 1 reception. I think Kamara is one of those pieces that on this slate, if he falls through the cracks at 6,800 in some way, shape, or form, there are so many of those bell cow backs that you talked about before. He just goes in the bucket of guys I would have a ton of interest to try to get to in order to have lineups that just looked a little bit different. 7.1% ownership currently. I do think obviously his passing game role is far better than what you're looking at from Kenneth Walker below it. I would prefer Kenneth Walker at their current ownerships, considering 4% to 7%, but Kamara, hard to really negate the fact that he has had the workload. And last week, I kind of write off for Kendry Miller because I don't think he sees that kind of a workload if that game stays competitive.
Agreed. CJ Stroud plus money, plus 124 to throw an interception right now. Bet 365 actually has the best odds, plus 125. Yeah, I'm betting that this week. It's happening.
No Tank Dell, possibly no Robert Woods. He might be force feeding Nico Collins, which is not a great thing with Marshawn Lattimore sitting out there.
Yep. Saints, I think Saints have the 3rd most interceptions in the league defensively.
No idea.
Yeah, I think they do.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
you're smart.
You get what I'm saying here.
You're smart. I'm dumb. You're right. I'm wrong. You were right about CJ Stroud. I will say that. I will be eating crow if he keeps this up.
Well, there's still a lot of season to go, but he looks good. He looks way better than Bryce Young for sure. But yeah, Saints have the 3rd most interceptions, 7 behind the Bills and the Niners. I think it's a tough spot for CJ Stroud, and quite frankly, I'm not enamored with this Houston offense this week. You're probably going to want to get to like some Dalton Schultz or whatever. And if Tank Dell is out and Woods is out, you're going to have to make some concessions and just like, grin and bear it and bite the bullet with some of these and be like, I'll do it. But I really do think this is a tough matchup for CJ Stroud. A matter of fact, I'm willing to go as far to say that I think this is the toughest matchup that CJ Stroud has faced this season. You could make the argument that it was Baltimore, but the problem is, remember going into week 1, Baltimore had guys dropping like flies in that game. So many injuries. Indy, Jacksonville, Pitt, but they just had to lead the whole game and it was easy. Atlanta. Yeah, I think this is a real tough matchup for CJ Stroud.
I have interest. He's 6K. Robert Woods dinged up. And the big thing, Tank Dell is probably not going to play football. This could be a very consolidated workload for this wideout crew. I have interest in John Mechie the third. He ended up running 25 routes there in that spot where Tank Dell gets removed from the game. He's 3,100 here. Again, Robert Woods could be limited in some capacity, even if he gets activated there. So, I mean, this is an injury situation that could really, really lower your cost of putting together that stack. And then New Orleans on the other side, Olave ended up playing through that toe injury. It looked a lot worse in pregame video on Twitter than what it ended up being in the game because he was very, very serviceable. Still ended up catching the touchdown. Didn't really have to get, he didn't have to put his foot down to the pedal. They didn't have to utilize him as much there. So Chris Olave, 6,600 as a run back. Michael Thomas even there coming off of 7 targets. He's just kind of been meh, but I don't know. It feels like Kamara as a run back to CJ Stroud stacks in the event that we get Robert Woods and take Dell out. You could do worse than that.
Yeah, I think you could as well, but I don't love it.
There you go. That's fair. That's fair.
I think you could do worse, but I don't love it.
But not by much.
No, dude, Stroud's been awesome. Even
Yeah.
last game,
I'm just mad that he's so good because I was so vehemently against him. I have like 0 best ball shares. It's not ideal.
Dude, I have way too much Tank Dell in Houston. Because all summer they were just going in like the last pick of the draft, and then my dumbass would forget to draft a second quarterback, and CJ Stroud would always be one of the last guys left.
I will say I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine at the bar the other night where I got him into best ball in the offseason, and he's just like, this is the most random thing ever. It's gotten inherently more random because of concussion protocol. Like, it is,
Yep.
you have no clue who's going to get bit by the bullet, but you're going to get bit by so many zeros throughout an entire season if this is like the new way of doing it. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I'm saying that because of the way that they're handling concussions now, you're inherently just going to get way more zeros across the board than ever before.
Yeah, absolutely. Chat, you guys are right. Yeah, Noah Brown should be back this week as well. So pay attention to that with him coming off the IR. All right. New England and Las Vegas. I told you we'd expedite certain spots. I'm not touching. I don't care if the Patriots score 40 points. I don't care. I'm not. Juju Smith-Schuster's not practicing with a concussion. That's your news on that. I like to give you guys as much in-depth information and analysis as possible. I know Eric does too. I'm fading New England until they show a pulse.
Yep, can't do it. Hunter Henry, only play that I would have any of right now.
What about the Raiders with such a concentrated target share? Adams last game, I don't care too much about that. I think he'll be fine for this week. Jacoby Myers is a baller, though. He's good. And clearly Jimmy G likes him. Josh Jacobs hasn't been able to get anything going from an efficiency standpoint, but the volume is certainly there. The New England Patriots have been outscored 72-3 over their last 2 games. It feels like a letdown spot for the Raiders because Josh McDaniels is just not a great coach and will find ways to mess things up. But again, concentrated target share, banged up defense for the Patriots. Anything you really love here? Because for me, it might actually be Devontae Adams if he gets way less ownership than Jamar and Tyreek and so many of these other top priced guys.
Yeah, these 2 guys are going to be big stands of mine more than likely come Sunday. I say more than likely because everything is relative to ownership, but
yep.
You got to remember the big piece for New England. Christian Gonzalez out for the season with a torn labrum.
Yep.
I don't think enough people paid attention to that last week. However, I didn't really know how to utilize it other than through Kamara, who I was way, way, way overweight to. I thought Chris Olave in the warmups at least scared me off enough to not have any exposure there because I was planning on being way over and talking about him on Sundays Live before lock. Luckily, that never even happened, so didn't have to get burned by that. But Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers are over 80% of the team's total air yards and target share. I've never seen anything quite like this right now. Devontae Adams, whatever you were watching on ESPN was absolute dog shit when they were saying that, Devontae Adams doesn't seem like he has the same rapport with Jimmy Garoppolo as Jacoby Myers does. That's the dumbest thing that I've ever heard, ever. And it's Troy Aikman saying it. It's like, Troy, buddy, you're smarter than that. We've been listening to you for years and years and years. There's no way that somebody could actually look at the numbers, to actually look at the data and say that that was the case. He's had unbelievable amount of targets and opportunity, more so than he had in his MVP season, 18 touchdowns, for Aaron Rodgers' MVP season, but 18 touchdowns for Devontae Adams back in that year, 14 leading in last year alongside Derek Carr, who I don't find to be as a guy who's going to key in on a number one as much as what Jimmy Garoppolo is going to. I mean, this is just an awesome opportunity to play these 2 players and these 2 players alone on the Vegas side. I think Josh Jacobs, another one of those bell cow running backs that just goes in the bucket of, hey, play the ones that aren't popular. I do prefer a lot of other running backs in his range right now, but Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers are undeniably 2 of the best tournament plays at their current ownership.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's really silly to say something like that because going into last game, in the games that Jimmy Garoppolo played with Adams and Myers, the 2 of them before that, it was a 71% combined target share, 40% to Adams, 31% to Myers. And Adams was dealing with a shoulder, dealing with a lot of Jair Alexander. I know you saw a lot of that. A lot of that Jacoby Myers production was in the middle of the field.
Yep.
A lot of it was in the middle of the field. So whatever. But
And also Devontae Adams, 9.5 ADOT. That has room to grow. 41.8% air yards percentage, 33.2% target share. I mean, this is ridiculous. 37.7% of the air yards for Jacoby Myers. I repeat, nearly 80% of the air yards are going to two guys on a football team, and they are both very, very good at the catching of footballs. So, like, play them.
Also, when it comes to somebody like Josh Jacobs, as unproductive as he's been from an efficiency standpoint, you look at touches per game. There are only a few guys that are ahead of him. He's still sixth. Alvin Kamara is number one, but he's played 2 games. So even if you take him out, Zach Moss, if you take Kamara out, leads the league, all running backs and touches per game.
Unreal.
McCaffrey, Montgomery, ETN, and Josh Jacobs, right? So he's averaging over 20 touches per game. And now the Patriots have potentially given up. I'm not saying they have entirely, but yeah, Jacobs is in a good spot. Everything you said, I'm with you. The Raiders, I hate targeting the Raiders because this is such a dysfunctional organization from top to bottom, right? From coaching and everything and quarterback play to whatever. Max Crosby's such a stud though, but he really is. That guy's so good.
Yep. One of the best stories in the NFL too.
It's awesome. Yeah. Anytime a guy overcomes something like that, I'm big time pulling for him. But no, yeah, I think you can go to any of these guys just on the target share, the production, the opportunities. That's what it comes down to. Yep. I'm with you.
And Christian Gonzalez being out, I don't think that can possibly be understated because the guy that they're replacing him with is J.C. Jackson, who they traded from the Chargers, who was last year's dead last cornerback in PFF grading. We're talking the worst cornerback, J.C. Jackson, 28.7 grade, lowest amongst qualified cover grades in 2022. He is now currently, let me find it, 97th out of 109 cornerbacks so far this season with the Chargers. Now you're putting him probably on Jacoby Myers more so than not, mainly because they have to have Jonathan Jones be the matchup against Adams or they'll get completely torched. They can put whomever they want there on the wide receiver 3 because it's usually Renfro out of the slot, even though he doesn't do a whole hell of a lot. You got Jabril Peppers still playing safety back there, looking really good. But, I mean, God, they have so many issues with your starting J.C. Jackson at corner.
It's bad. Philly and the New York Jets, we got 3 games to go. I certainly would suggest you guys don't go anywhere for these 3 games because it gets very interesting now. Very interesting. Before we do, Prize Picks, guys. $100 first match deposit bonus over on Prize Picks. If you haven't signed up yet, they are doing things right, to say the least. They are absolutely doing things right over there at Prize Picks. You sign up, link in the description or in chat. You're getting a first match deposit bonus up to $100. The great part about that is your balance when you deposit will say $200 when you deposit $100. You're actually doubling your balance up of playable funds. If you wanted to play 5 lineups for $20, now you can play 10. Even if you only deposit 20, now instead of, 4 $5 lineups, you've got 8 of them. It is a great deposit bonus. And all you're doing is building out lineups with these players. So like if you had props on a typical sports book with the over or under, you have these same numbers at Prize Picks, but you're just deciding more or less passing yards, receptions, touchdowns, all of that, building out a lineup. You can mix as many sports together as you want. Let's say you do a 5-pick flex play. You go, okay, 5 picks flex play, 10x if I hit all 5. But if I hit 4, unlike a traditional book, if I hit 4, I still 2x. I still make money back on hitting 3 of 5. If you wanted to go wild, you go with a 6-pick flex play, 25x your entry fee. Huge. And you still make money back on 5 of 6, on 4 of 6. So you're not just getting burned in the event that you hit 3 straight weeks, 3 straight days of 4 out of 5 or 4 out of 6 or 5 out of 6. And they also have just an insane amount of prop selections of player, stat projections and selections that aren't to be found really anywhere else. Mm-hmm. I know I say this to you all the time, but the one place that I love to look on Prize Picks is the anytime touchdown scores because there's no juice on these. There's no minus 150. It might be minus 150 on a traditional sports book, but here it's just more or less a half a touchdown. I think there's some really juicy spots to target. Do you have anything this week if someone's on Prize Picks or looking to sign up to get that deposit bonus, especially if they're in, a non-legal state elsewhere?
Yeah, I've got a couple of plays that are already fired up. I think for tonight, Travis Kelce under 6.5 receptions. I know that it's an uncomfortable feeling for some people to have unders in your lives, but 6.5 receptions for a guy who last week ended up leaving early, comes back, puts up a massive outing. I gotta imagine against Denver, you maybe take it a little bit easier on him, and that's just a pretty high projection when you're talking about somebody that this season. I mean, they haven't had to put the foot down at all here with him. Jacksonville, that game was pretty well endowed until last week against Minnesota. Ended up being competitive there for a hot second. He leaves, comes back, plays awesome, but 6.5. That's grading out also as I'm hopping over to Odd Chopper here. That under 6.5 there, 55% expected win percentage. That's kind of the ballpark that you're looking at for some of these plays. You want to build out 5 and 6 player cards because those are going to have a higher expected EV to them. Yeah, the expected win percentage, it's going to be around 3, 4, 5%, even on the good spots, but like you still get paid out for 5 of 6. You don't get paid out for 5 of 6 at a sports book. So just saying, Prize Picks, lots of reasons that I prefer to play over there above just about anywhere else in the industry.
Love it. $100 first match deposit bonus. Sign up. Use the link in the description or in chat. Let's talk Philly and the Jets. All right. I've said it. I'll keep this short. I don't want to go 48 hours here. I think that the Eagles, Elijah Vera Tucker's out for the Jets as well. Mm-hmm. Zach Wilson has already been pressured at one of the highest clips in the league. He's taken a lot of sacks already. I think defensively, you can make life very difficult for Zach Wilson. Run defense against Breece Hall could lock him down. And on the other side, the Jets have a spectacular secondary. Their pass coverage is excellent. Their run defense has been below average. 4th most yards per game, 4.5 yards per attempt. I could go down the list here. If you want to look at DVOA, I think they're in the middle of the league. But go actually look at some of these games. They've really struggled to contain the run. I think you could just see the Eagles lean heavily on this offensive line as we've seen in the past. Swift is one of these guys where I think people are going to shy away from the matchup against the Jets. 6,100, same price range as a lot of the others. Ignore the fact that he's seen, 20 plus looks in back-to-back games and think that Kenny Gainwell's still, a focal point here along with Swift. He's the one guy on this offense that I like this week a lot for Philly. Aside from that, maybe sprinkle some Goddard. Maybe you want to get weird with Devonta Smith because, he's the squeaky wheel. AJ Brown's been phenomenal, 125 plus yards in 3 straight games. But to me, I think it would actually be Swift here at low.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Swift and it's going to be Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts at low ownership. We're starting to see exactly kind of what you were hoping for. 15 rushing attempts against the Rams last week. He is being utilized as that weapon again. And knowing that exists, I mean, I can't see a lot of scenarios where I'm going to go Hurts Swift and have that be the only 2 pieces from it. But I do think that's how you go out and beat the Jets. I do think Jalen Hurts, maybe not naked, maybe just a straight single with AJ Brown at low ownership. Both of those guys pulling less than 6% ownership there, less than 5% for AJ Brown. If you are going to have a big game, it's going to be AJ Brown who can be a little bit matchup independent, if you will. He is very much that dude. But I'm with you. DeAndre Swift, really great to see the workload that he's been getting. Nice to see the red zone touches here as well. And Kenneth Gainwell, he's just not good. And that's something you and I have been beating the drum for here. Boston's got a distant memory. I'm sure he'll show back up in our lives when they play a lowly Giants team and he'll be Giant killer again, yada, yada, yada. But
and R.I.P. Rashad Penny, of course. R.I.P.
Not even with us anymore.
It's so
not
sad.
Even with us. DeAndre Swift, 6,100, bell cow back. That seems fun there. I guess for me, the question is, do we run our Breece Hall love back? Because that worked out.
For sure. Yeah.
He got steamed, by the way. Week. Holy shit.
I know. Yeah, I was going to say, not to say that we were the only ones on Breece Hall, obviously.
No.
But he was an excellent play. He crushed. 72-yard touchdown run. Great game. He's amazing. He might be my favorite running back in the league right now.
Mine too. Shout out Iowa State.
He's awesome. But no, to answer your question, I actually don't really like anything. You know what? Football's weird. I say it every show. Weird things happen. We saw Washington against Philly a couple weeks ago, divisional spot. anything can happen. Jets have some life, some wind, beneath the sails right now. I get all that. I don't really like this Jets offense this week, though. There's 11 games. This is the spot that I'm probably not getting to.
Yeah, I think my favorite place in this game, Philly defense goes probably fourth in the pecking order, but definitely going to be DeAndre Swift 1, Jalen Hurts 2, AJ Brown 3. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right. Hey, how about Arizona and the Rams? And
fun.
As always, appreciate you guys hanging out with us and sticking around for this show. My hope and Eric's hope, I know for sure, is that like when this show is over, you have a better understanding of each week, of each slate. And I hope that's the case, right? That's why we spend a little more time on these games, to make sure you're going into Sunday prepared and hopefully making good decisions, or at least knowing what's going on. Arizona, and we got over 100 likes. We only asked once. So thank you guys. It's pretty good. We only asked once. Good people around here. These are the ride or die folks on the matchup show.
So my dad always told me, he's like, son, you listen once, and you just the first time.
There you go.
And you take orders, and then you know what? Life works out a lot better for you.
But these aren't orders. These are suggestions.
Suggestions.
Also known as subtle commands. That's what they
there
say.
You go.
That's what they say in the rooms. If you know what I mean.
Oh my God.
They say
it only works if you work it, Lofty.
Yeah, they say a suggestion is a subtle command. At least that's what they used to say. Arizona and the Rams. All right, so no James Conner.
Yep.
Mercado, I guess. If Keontae Ingram plays, though, this backfield to me looks really gross, to be completely honest.
He was listed as the number 1 in practice yesterday, even though he practiced it in a limited capacity.
Yeah. And before he got hurt, he was the clear number 2 behind Connor.
Yes. Got mixed in a little bit against Dallas.
I think you could see a split, and then this backfield just looks gross.
Probably just going to be a late slate special for me. You've got 4 games going in the late window. You want to try to get different with some kind of roster construction, be my guest, try to make it work. If Keontae Ingram is active, I'm going to prefer him, mainly because, on the depth chart that they listed yesterday on Twitter's or X or wherever the hell that is, they had Keontae Ingram listed as the guy who was the number 1 RB, and DeMercado was listed as number 2. Again, that could just be whatever. I really don't care. It would feel like a coin flip 50-50 situation for me. You can embrace that on a 4-gamer, hard to do it on an 11-gamer.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You know what? Afternoon slate, Greg and I are going to talk about this tomorrow, but afternoon slate with these 4 games and some of them being pretty ugly, that'll be a different conversation than the main slate, without question. I think you can still get to Marquise Brown, though. I love the near 30% target share here. Zach Ertz, to me, though, is just like one of these, hey, that's cool. He got targeted 10 times and he had 5 for 28. Or he scored and he had 2 receptions for a touchdown and 10 yards. Nah, I don't love the Hurts stuff here. You mentioned it earlier. Give me at least the ceiling with Kyle Pitts. I don't care if he zeroes out. Give me the ceiling with Kyle Pitts over Zach Ertz.
Yeah, I don't quite understand what's going on with it. I mean, I think people have seen 10 targets in 2 of the 5 games, and that's somewhat appealing to them. Had the touchdown that salvaged a box score on Sunday. But I just have no interest in trying to make a popular Zach Ertz a thing here, even against the Rams, where, you can line up in line and have some opportunities in the middle of that field. But I strongly prefer getting to Kyle Pitts, even if they're going to be somewhat comparable, even if it ends up being Pitts 15% to Ertz's 10, 11%, I will definitely be going that direction. I'm with you. Marquise Brown is awesome. 42.9% of the team's air yards is a ridiculous allotment. It basically is the only guy that Dobbs is kind of keyed in on. And I did kind of feel pretty sharp about certain things. I said, Rondale Moore, he's going to be your gadget guy who can get involved in the rushing game. He brought 3 carries, 50 yards. Pretty interesting stuff how they're utilizing him. I would call him disappointing based on what we expected out of Purdue, but Rondale Moore, 3,500. You want to get really, really different on that afternoon slate.
Sure.
He's kind of a nice way to do it. Michael Wilson can provide you some upside. 2 cheapies, sub 4K, that I think provide some kind of upside against this Rams team. And, well, there's one guy on the Rams we definitely want to be playing.
There's 3 guys on the Rams I want to be playing.
Yeah, Kyron Williams 4. Is like, for me, number 1, and Kupp and Nakua. And it's so fun. It's so fun.
It is. And you know what? Matthew Stafford's price point is still at a spot where if you were to play Cooper Kupp and Nakua, it's not lineup friendly, but it is doable because you have a $6,100 Stafford. Kyron Williams, I'll keep this super short, man. Kyron Williams, Puka Nakua, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford. I honestly just think all of them are not only viable, but excellent, excellent plays. And another reason to consider this too, guys, is when you look at this team, the Arizona Cardinals, I think you have to be impressed with the fact that Jonathan Gannon got these guys up to play each week, right? But you can only play over your skill level for so long in the NFL. You can only play over your head for so long. And this is just my personal opinion, but I think that's exactly what we were seeing with Arizona. So coming off of week 5 where Cooper Kupp returned, he had a 35% target share. Puka Nakua had a 32% target share, and everyone else was a distant afterthought outside of Tutu being at 15%. Yes, if there's a team that I want to stack, I will stack Stafford with Atwell and with Cooper Kupp and hope that I can work around the pieces to make that happen. I love Kyron Williams. I'm with you for sure. But this two-man stack with Stafford just looks so juicy this week, even if it's going to be popular.
Completely with you in that regard. I mean, I still like getting to Nakua as a contrarian piece, 8K. Why not get a little bit different there, considering he's just doing phenomenal things? I guess he's 9%. But yeah, he's less than half the ownership of Cooper Kupp for a reason. If you had known Cooper Kupp was going to play 53 snaps in that game, he would have been the best tournament play to just click on repeatedly last week, and you would have lived with the results.
I was actually mad that sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was actually mad as I'm watching this game. I was actually upset with myself that I didn't, because everything suggested from Sean McVay that he was going to be fine. But then I was happy because I was getting Jamar Chase instead of Cooper
That's
Kupp.
Exactly it. I think we got bailed out by the uber ceiling game from Jamar Chase. That felt good because he was my highest owned player on the slate, but like still just had a number of issues with had 0 chance. So there's that. But Cooper Kupp, 9K, don't care. You're going to be on the field like this. He, as you said, Sean McVay told us the truth. Like, what a time to be alive for that, too. Like, Sean McVay told us the truth.
Yep.
Puka Nakua still out there a ton. I love. I mean, this is just going to be a fun offense to be targeting because of how consolidated everything is. Kyron Williams, still my number 1 to get to there. Cooper Kupp going to be 2, Nakua 3. Stafford, come along for the ride there. I don't mind the Tutu Atwell deal. Had the red zone look, got the touchdown there. Really nice catch there as well. Van Jefferson been sent to the shadow realm to Arthur Smith to die, so that'll be fun. But like, I feel really good about this Rams offense in this spot.
You know what the Rams are? This offense, this is the NFC version of the Raiders. This is
interesting. Yeah.
Think about it.
I see it. It is 100%. That's exactly what they are.
Like,
except for Matt Stafford's way better than Jimmy Garoppolo.
It's the rich man's version of the Las Vegas Raiders, because you probably still take Puka Nakua over Jacoby Myers. Although if you stuck Matthew Stafford in Las Vegas, maybe not. Maybe you're but yeah, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Josh Jacobs, that's your team. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nakua, Kyron Williams, that's your team. I mean, these are the two teams with the most, in my opinion, assuming things stay consistent for the Rams, most concentrated target shares in the league, most concentrated usage in the league.
Yeah. The tough thing is obviously when you compare the two price wise for this slate, Jacoby Myers is 5,800. That changes everything to a certain extent, because Nakua, as much as we love it, 8K for him, Kupp 9K. That's a little bit more difficult to get to, but I got to say, Matthew Stafford is so much better than Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not even funny. So if you're trying to stack one of the two, I got to say, I probably still prefer getting to the Matthew Stafford side. I'm going to just be playing individual pieces of Adams and Jacoby Myers and like tons of lineups.
Oh, I much prefer the Rams stack as a whole. And I like one-offs for the Raiders. I'm with you.
Exactly.
Detroit and Tampa Bay. Let's wrap this up. I think Tampa Bay, where you're getting 3.5, I think that's a nice spot this week.
This was the first bet that I made. Tampa Bay against Detroit.
Did you get the 3.5?
Yeah, 3.5. That's the only play that I have right now on Thursday. Only play.
Win or lose. This is one of these spots where people are just super high on the Lions right now. And I think they're discounting that this Tampa Bay team's actually pretty decent. You know what I mean? They're actually a pretty decent team. Bet365 had a 3.5 up there. They might still have that up there. I saw.
I mean, look at who Tampa Bay's had to play this year.
I know, and even against the Eagles, if Mike Evans didn't drop those passes, that's a ball game.
Minnesota, I mean, the Chicago one is whatever, but then Philadelphia and on the road in New Orleans, not the easiest spots. And this defense has shown up in every single spot. Philly, they still, quote unquote, held them to 25. It was 201 yards on the ground, but otherwise they haven't allowed a team to ground against them. Held the Minnesota Vikings to 41, Chicago to 67, New Orleans to 70. I mean, the Bucks, this is a buy low team right now.
Yep. Yeah, I like Mike Evans this week, as a matter of fact. I think he's going to go relatively overlooked. I can't say I'm huge on Rachaad White, but he's fine. On the Detroit side, I'm on Ross St. Brown. Campbell is hopeful that he'll be able to play. We'll see with that abdomen injury. And I don't think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to play. So what are you doing with these games on both sides? Wrap it up for us. Put a bow on the week 6 matchup strategy show.
Yeah, the big question, Amon-Ra St. Brown, I do expect him to be playing here in this spot, 7,700. That's a very contrarian stack to be getting to Goff. In combination with him, perhaps David Montgomery. I'm with you, Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't expect to be playing football in this spot. I still think Josh Reynolds is serviceable at 4,500, going to be the guy who's just fits in better alongside Amon-Ra St. Brown, who should be taking over the slot immediately again from Khalif Raymond. No issue there whatsoever, although Amon-Ra St. Brown, you can play him wherever. He's that kind of a dude. As for Tampa Bay on the other side, with you, Mike Evans against the Detroit secondary. This feels like just a buy low spot on this, not necessarily this offense, because I like the defense on the Tampa Bay side better, as does everybody else. But Rachaad White is 5,500, and Sean Tucker has been just trash. 15 rushing attempts here for Rachaad White in every single game outside of the Philly one, 14 there for him. We know the reception volume that can come along for the ride. Don't sleep on a $5,500 Rachaad White or $3,200 KDOT, and somebody that I do expect to get targeted more and more as we go along, Baker Mayfield. That's going to be kind of an outlet that he's got to get to for some of these pass rushes. You get Hutchison, you get some of these other guys for Detroit in the mix here. I like the Detroit defense as a contrarian piece. I really like the Tampa Bay defense as a contrarian piece, 2,300.
Let's wrap this up. If you were to go and say right now, your favorite play at each position.
Ooh, this is fun.
You can factor ownership in, salary, all of that. You can factor in favorite play at each position.
Quarterback, one quarterback to rule them all. Let me just look at my lineups here that I built before the show too. Oh my God, that can't be true. Justin Fields, quarterback.
Yeah.
Just disturbing.
All right.
I'll go down the line. Quarterback, Justin Fields. Running back, definitely Kyron Williams. Wide receiver, I'll have a 1A, Jamar Chase. 1B, DJ Moore. Tight end, TJ Hawkinson.
And favorite stack.
God, now all I've been thinking about is that Ram stack, but I got to go to Joe Burrow, 6,300 in conjunction with a combination of Jamar Chase and X.
All right. I'm going Rams. And then favorite off the wall, as Ben would say, Mega Mind Genius stack is Atlanta.
Gardner Minshew.
All right. Love it. Hey, you guys are the best. Appreciate you for hanging out as always. We've made it through yet another week. This is a good show. I told you, fun slate. There's a lot of nuance to this one. Tomorrow, Sim Strategy Show, 11 a.m. Saturday, you've got the tournament strategy show, and then it all culminates. Huge Sunday, 3.5-hour live stream. First look, deeper dive, live before lock. We got you covered all the way up until lock. Thanks, guys. Follow Eric at Eric Lindquist, me at Laffy_D. And shout out to Jordan Klein for the long haul here as well on this show. We'll see you guys back here for the next one. Peace.
What we do?